Hey guys, as many of you know, we've been working with the saddle company, Buzzard Roost Saddles. We're fortunate enough now to offer you a 10% discount code at buzzardroostsaddles.com. So if you're looking for a new saddle setup or you're new to the saddle hunting game, visit their website at buzzardroostsaddles.com and use coupon code HTWPC10 to receive 10% off your order. That's HTWPC10 to receive 10% off your order. BuzzardRoostSaddles.com.
Welcome to the Hunt the Wild podcast, where we explore the world of hunting. From gear and technique to ethics and conservation, join us as we talk to experienced hunters.
Deer fit right in the trunk. You put them in a. You can go on eBay and buy a $20 cadaver bag. So
industry experts.
Even though I've missed deer, that's not failure. I just didn't bring them home. I succeeded. And the only thing I didn't do was run an arrow through it.
And other outdoor enthusiasts to share stories, insights, and tips on all things hunting.
I didn't understand the respect that hunters have for the animals they're hunting.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, this podcast has something for everyone who loves the thrill of the hunt. So grab your gear and let's dive in.
Hey guys, before we jump into the show, I just wanted to warn you with this episode, there was a few technical difficulties. So you may hear some parts in here that cut out from the guest, but I would encourage anybody, if you can, to kind of fight through those sections because this is a really cool episode. So let's jump into it, and I hope you enjoy. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Adam Bowlds, and this week I have a guest with me who wants to talk about a little bit of falconry. And I actually saw a sticker on his truck at a local farm store here, and I left him a note seeing if he'd want to be on the show. So, Chris, I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself, and then we'll kind of roll into this falconry stuff because I'm pretty intrigued by it.
Well, my name's Chris Gould. I've been a falconer for 25 years now. Started when I was 15. And actually, ironically, the day you left me the note was my birthday.
Oh.
So it was kind of a kick to come out and see that.
Now, I have to ask you, when you first came... Oh, we got a little bit of a lag, so I got to be mindful of that. I have to ask you, when you first came out to your truck and you saw that orange tag under your windshield wiper, what did you think? Did you think it was a ticket or something?
I come out to a vehicle and there be something from religious aspects to stuff, or like even rubber sale notes before, but so I was like, somebody left something, no big deal. So I looked at it and I read it and I was like, that's interesting. And here we are. So.
Yeah, it's funny. You put those stickers and stuff on your truck. I do the same thing, and it's kind of just for you, really. You don't really expect anybody to ever really pay attention to it. But I'm always looking in the parking lot. I'm like, man, that guy's got a deer sticker, and I saw it. I can't remember specifically what it said, but it said something about falconry and squirrel hunting, and everybody knows I'm a big squirrel hunter, so I was like, damn.
Like a slang term for a falconer is a hawker. And I hawk squirrels a lot. Like it's my favorite part of the sport. And I just so I had my wife make the sticker squirrel hawker on the back of my truck, and then on the side of it it's a outline of a red-tailed hawk chase squirrel on the right-hand side.
Yeah, it was super interesting. I drove by it, and then I was like, what did that say? And I had to turn around and go back.
And some people. You had a little lag there. I didn't catch what you said.
Yeah, it's a little laggy, but we'll try to work through it. So I am gonna ask you what inspired you. You said you got into falconry when you were like 15. How'd you kind of land in that? Was it somebody you knew or something you just stumbled upon?
Actually, I'm one of the lucky ones. Yeah, my dad was a falconer when I was a little kid,
Mm.
so I always knew about it. And then he got out of it when I was probably about 7 or 8 or so. And I just like because he was sick. It's not like he just gave it up to give it up, but I just always loved it. Never like anytime I went to his house, I went hunting with him during hunting season, and I just always loved it. Ever since I'm a little kid, I was like, Dad, I'm going to do that when I get old enough. Because back when I was little, you had to be, I think, I can't remember if you had to be 16 or 18 when I was little, and then that just took fire, and I just gun hole the whole time, and I've never given it up. I never will.
Now
And that's
you
how I got
mentioned
started. Like that's how I got interested in it and started. And
you mentioned the age thing, like 16 to 18. Is there like a I know like here you got to be 12 before you can kind of take hunter's education. Is there a certain age where you have to be a falconer?
yeah, they every state is different on the regs now. They used to be universal, all the same. But the feds they kind of backed out a little bit of the sport. Like they oversee it, but they don't control it anymore. That like U.S. Fish doesn't step in as much. So the states are different, but like New York, for years in feds say you can be 12, but a lot of states didn't adopt that. Some states did. And like I said, I started at 15, and it was hard at 15. There's been a few people that start at 14 and they do okay, but it's a struggle unless your parents are really involved when you're that age, or if your sponsor lives close by, because you have to have someone to mentor you for a minimum of 2 years, no matter how old you are. And obviously, the younger you are, that mentorship has to go longer because you can't step out of that apprentice stage until you're a certain age as well. So if you start early, your minimum apprenticeship expands on those number of years that's required. I think under the new regs you can be 16 to get your general falconer license. So if you're 12, you're 4 years in if you start that young. So if you're 14, it's 2 years because it's required to be like even if you're 25 and you start, it's a minimum of 2-year apprenticeship minimum. And some people try to push that to the limit, and then I have lots of myself included because I was 15. I did a 5-year apprenticeship just because I was hunting with the birds I enjoyed hunting with, so I didn't care if I got my upgrade or not. Other people, even friends back in New York, 5-year apprenticeship just because they're happy with what they're flying, because as an apprentice, you're only allowed 2 different types of birds, a red tail or a kestrel. Once you get your general things, happy. Your general, you can fly just about anything you want. Is the number of birds you can have. Like in New York, you're allowed up to 13 birds as a master. In Indiana, you're allowed, like, as long as you're flying them all, they don't care how many you have. As long as I wild.
Yeah, I never realized. I guess I just assumed that you researched it on the internet and then you somehow got a license to get a bird. I didn't realize that there was like apprenticeship steps and all kinds of that nature. Because I mean, usually you take a hunter's education
I always use this
course,
as an explanation. I always use this as the best explanation on the whole falconry process. In most states, it's easier to get a dangerous animal permit to have a pet tiger than as a falconer license because
That's
it's
insane.
so regulated. Yes, like your tiger could eat you when it's a year old. Your hawk is never going to eat you. Your falcon is never going to eat you. Even if you if I wanted to, I could go through the extra steps to qualify to get a golden eagle. I have no desire to have a golden eagle. My golden eagle could kill me. The chance of it eating my entire carcass and no one ever finding me again is slim to none. But I have no desire to have one, just because what am I going to hunt with it? I don't know. I don't live anywhere where there's nothing but jackrabbits.
Why do you feel that that's a little more regulated than like having a dangerous animal permit? Is it because they're?
It's not even the feel. It is. You have to take a test. You have to do all this crazy stuff before they even say you can have a license now. But then I still got to get the bird. If you want a pet tiger, it's literally a piece of paper. You fill it out, send it in, and they send you a license. Now you can go get a tiger. Or a lion or a bear. You just got to build a facility to house it in. Got to do the same thing for a falconry license. But the stipulations for the tiger enclosure are way different than the stipulations for the falconry enclosure.
Now these birds. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was thinking anyway.
So these birds, I get a license or whatever. I go through apprenticeship. I'm just going to pretend, I know what I'm doing. So I call and I'm like, hey, I want a bird. Do I get like a baby one or do I get one that's like half trained? How does that really work?
Believe it or not, we trap our birds out of the wild.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the picture that I saw, that's the red-tailed hawk I currently have. I trapped her September 11th last fall. This past fall that went by. Her first catch of the wild quarry was November 1st. And that was me struggling.
Damn.
Like, I was actually very, that bird was frustrating me. That's the hardest red tail I've ever worked with personally. And I've trained a bunch of red tails. I trapped her near the airport, actually.
Huh.
So a few miles from the house, really, in a straight line.
Yeah.
She has been the most difficult red tail for me to get hunting because I hunt squirrels. In New York, when I was in New York, every red tail I catch, I just have to show it a squirrel and the game's on. This bird, I had to pull out every bag of tricks that I use for captive bred Harris hawks, and when I want to hunt squirrels with them, for a passage wild red tail. And it finally took forever for her to catch her first squirrel. But once she did, the light bulb went off in her head to like, oh, this is what he wants me to do, and game was on, and she just started demolishing fox squirrels, which was a whole new learning experience for me because I had squirrels in New York.
Yeah.
That's all I have here in Indiana.
So how do you trap them?
But it's been easiest way for me to explain it is it's basically just a cage that you put the bait in. I use bowls because they move around and they're a little bit bigger. They last a lot longer than mice do. Plus mice stink. I get sick of that.
Yeah.
And then on this cage, it's weighted so the bird can't fly away with it. You put nooses made out of fishing line on it. They're tied a certain way, and the way my trap is designed. So pretty much as soon as the bird touches it, they're snared by their feet because they're going in with their feet to try to catch, kill the gerbil. And then I just watch through binoculars, and once I know the bird is snared by the nooses, I run out and grab them. Sometimes they get away, it happens, but luckily for me, it's not too. It's one of my favorite aspects of falconry is the trapping of it. Like, hunting is number one, trapping is number two as far as my favorite parts of the sport. It's an adrenaline rush. Even when I'm not looking for a bird for myself, I still will go trapping just for the adrenaline of it. And then usually there's always people looking for birds anyway, so I'll hey, when I was in New York, I was like, hey, Chris, I need a camera now. I'll call him, hey, come on, trapping. We go out, I'll find him a bird, we trap it, there you go, there's your bird, just because I really enjoy it. I'm pretty good at it, at least I think so. Most people are pretty happy with me when I take them trapping. and it's addicting. It's adrenaline. Like the first bird of the season, when I first start trapping for the new season, the first one is always a huge adrenaline dump. Where like by the time I go home, I'm tired, even if I only catch one bird. But I've had days where I've caught 8 birds before. It's just,
my God.
It depends on the migration, the areas you have, the miles you put on your vehicle looking for them, and your ability. And it just, when it all comes together, some people make it look easy. Some people make it look hard.
So you're basically going out and glassing for birds, and then once you find a bird, you're gonna set up a trap and put bait in there and just kind of hang back and watch. Is that right?
Basically, like the trap that I use is called VC, which is the wire cage. You drive around until you find a bird, identify that it's juvenile, because you're not allowed to take adult birds. They have to be immature birds under a year old.
Oh.
And then I throw, like, if I can't tell just by doing a drive-by, I'll put my binos on it. And then I get the trap in a position where I know it's going to be safe for the bird, set the trap out. And then, sometimes I have to go past the trap and, sit in a parking spot or in a parking lot or some edge of a field, edge of the road, whatever happens to be a situation. And then I wait for the bird to go down. When the bird goes down to the trap, I wait. And then obviously I'm watching with binoculars so I can see when they're caught, because I don't want them, attached to this trap forever and something drawing attention, whatever. I've had people stop their cars and going, "Oh man, there's a hurt bird," so I have to run over. I'm like, "No, the bird's not hurt. I'm trying to catch it," And I've explained that a few times. Only once I've ever had someone like, they didn't freak out, but like they thought it was shady at first until I'm like, "No," I had to really get into in-depth explanations, and they're like, usually you say, "Hey, I'm a falconer. I'm trying to catch this bird for my for the," and most people were pretty with it. Now, like, I only had more people who were like really skeptical. And it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, bird had to be near their young type thing, and they're like,
Yeah.
they really questioned it, and they're like, "Really, truly, is all I'm doing. Just I caught the bird, no big deal." And they're like, "Okay," they finally figured it out. That I was
Now, how many birds do you have? So you say that like you trap every year. Is that bird only good for a year and then you let it go, or?
Oh no, you could. Everybody does everything differently. I went years where I get a bird, train it, hunt with it a little bit, maybe just one season, let it go. If it was a wild caught bird, captive bred birds, like captive bred birds, we can do more things. We're allowed to trade them, we're allowed to sell them. Wild caught birds, you can't do anything like that. So wild caught bird, you get it yourself, you train it, you hunt with it. Some birds are bad hunters. On average, 80% die every year. First year birds, which is why we're allowed to catch those birds, because most of the birds we catch, we're saving their life.
Huh.
So we get them through the hardest part of their first year is their first winter. We get them through that. We teach them. We're not teaching them to hunt. We're just giving them more opportunities to be successful. As long as you're doing your job, the bird's going to get better. The bird's going to get smarter. And that translates into them, when you do release them, to being a better hunter, a better survivor, to become breeding stock. Because even good breeding stock that's a wild bird that's never in the falconer situation could tragically die from being hit by a car, or landing on an electric fence and electrocuting itself, or hitting a power pole just right. There's so many possibilities for them to go down. And there's, they need to be replaced in the breeding population at some point. Well, when you get like the red tail that I have, the struggle that I had with her hunting wasn't the fact that she didn't want to hunt. She didn't want to hunt. She didn't know how to hunt what I wanted to hunt. She had to learn that. Once she, it was, like I said, a light bulb went off into, this is what I need to do. And she, I think after she caught her first squirrel, she went 25 hunts in a row catching a squirrel. with only
Wow.
a couple of misses in there.
Now,
when usually like back home in New York.
I'm sorry, there's a little lag there. When you trap these
Yeah.
birds, are
It lagged
they
enough where I didn't hear the question.
when you trap them, are they aggressive? Like when you walk up on them?
Oh yeah, like that's actually things I look for when I trap them. Some birds will just flop over like they're dead. Like, oh no, I'm caught, I can't get away, and they just lay there. When I'm looking for a squirrel, I'm looking for a bird that wants to try to beat me up. I want it to defend itself. I want it to try to kick my butt.
Yeah.
There's actually many things I look for. A red-tailed hawk can catch a squirrel or catch a rabbit, and will have the desire to catch a rabbit. Wait, red tails for squirrels are a different game. You can take the smallest male red tail, and it may never ever chase a squirrel, even if you know what you're doing and you put it through all the paces and put a squirrel in front of it every day. It may never do it just because it's like, that thing's way too big. I don't want to eat it. But a rabbit on the ground is a completely different story. Even small birds like male Harris hawks, male goshawks, female Cooper's hawks will catch rabbits. A male red tail is than all those birds I just listed, and they'll catch a rabbit like nothing. But those birds catching squirrel is enough. I've done it with all of them hawks, male Harris hawks, female Harris hawks, goshawks, but the best squirrel hawk is red tail. When you put a female red tail in the air that knows what it's doing, it's a sight to see. They don't give up. They have the strength and the size to hold that squirrel down and to do it safely. Because most people, they're anti-squirrel hawking because, oh, my bird's going to get bit and it's going to lose a toe. First of all, I've never seen a bird lose a toe or die. They might get their tendon cut in their toe, but as long as you take precautionary steps, that tendon will heal, and that bird will be fine. Worst bite I've ever had on any of my birds was my last female red tail that I had while I lived in New York still, and bit in the eyebrow. And that's because when she grabbed the squirrel, she grabbed by the ass, and the squirrel grabbed its body around a limb, and then when she tried to reposition to grab it, it actually grabbed her in the eyebrow with its mouth. And she didn't let go for almost 5 minutes.
My gosh.
Before she was like, all right, this girl's beating my butt. I got to let it go. So finally she let it go, and the squirrel made it to safety course and was barking and laughing at me. And I was more worried about her at that point. But I called her down, looked her over. She was okay. So I held the bird down and had my wife look at it different in a vet, but she felt and it was okay. Like I gave her, I didn't expect nothing from her other than I fed her up, made her relax for a few days, and I think the next day we went out, she smashed a squirrel in 10 minutes. So it didn't bother her at all to get bit in the eyebrow,
That's crazy. Yeah. I think like people that worry about that kind of stuff, they forget that, animals are wild and they deal with that kind of stuff all the time without human interaction. I'm sure they get bit and everything else, through their daily life whenever they hunt.
Yeah, red tails in the wild eat squirrels. It's one of their main predators in the wild. You can camp for a red-tailed hawk that you can find at there's always, no matter what state it's in, there's some form of squirrel carcass in the nest. But there's always squirrel carcasses in every red tail.
So when you first grab one, like when you trap one, you put it in a cage or whatever, you take it home. What's like the first step to like teach it? Because that bird's wild, like it doesn't know. How do you keep it from like, you get it out of the cage? How do you keep it from flying off? Like how do you teach it how to hunt?
Okay. So we're not allowed to put birds in cages. I actually have a big building with 2 rooms in it, and each room is for 1 bird.
Wow.
And each room is basically 8 by 12. When I first bought this house that I'm living in now, I've only lived, like I said, I just moved to Indiana 18 months ago. I bought this house a year ago, and as soon as I got in it, first thing I started was construction on the hawk house, and that's why I call it a hawk house, because it's pretty big. And it, anyways, when we trap a bird, I hood my birds, or I try to hood all my birds, just because it makes life convenient and easier. So what I do, actually, especially with my red tails, I hood them, and I actually put them on a perch in the house, so I can watch them and see how they're going to react to the noises of daily life. And I work them, because you got to remember, to them you are a predator. In their mind, you are going to eat them, and I'm making that bird be a foot from me because it's on my fist. So they instantly go into defense mode. They will do everything they can to defend themselves and get away at the same time. So what they call baiting, they're just trying to get away. They flap their wings, trying to fly away. Of course, we have equipment on them, so they can't do that. The jesses, and I have a leash on them. And I sit so that way they're not going to hit anything. They're not going to hit a wall or a window, or I'm in a comfortable situation, so I can sit there for if I need to, or 5 minutes, depending on how good the training session goes. So the bird is hooded. The bird is calm. It can hear me. If I touch it, it's gonna, it might try to or something or whatever. That's why some people use a feather first or the end of the leash. But I've been watching bird body language enough. I can tell if they're going to try to strike at me, so I just use my hand. And I pet them, but I don't. It's not a pet. It's not a pet them to, hey, they like being pet. It's to get them to the point of, I'm not going to hurt them. And then I'm going to try to get them to eat for me. When I take the hood off, that's when they see me. They freak. Some birds, especially if they're the bigger the bird, the more likely it is to stay in its ground. It's going to want to defend itself, not try to get away. That's why I like the big, obviously for squirrel hunting, you need the bigger bird, but even if I wasn't a squirrel hunter, I'd still want the bigger bird, because I want that bird to stay in its ground. I want a brave bird. I actually wrote an article for the Indiana Falconer Club's news article publication that they do a couple a year. And in the article, I wrote that I don't want a whiptail, because I want that bird to stay in its ground. I want it to be brave. I want it to see I want it to chase the first thing I put in front of it, not the 10 or the 12. I want the first time it sees a squirrel, I want it to engage. And that goes back to, with this red tail that I've got was the hardest red tail I've ever had to go after squirrels. So it was very frustrating. I got to the point I almost fattened her back up and let her go. That's how much she was frustrated. And I've been doing this a long time, and for me to get to that phase, I was like, man, what do I got to do with this bird? And then I got lucky, and she caught that first squirrel, and like I said, boom, light bulb, and it was game on. There was no giving up after that. But when I was back to the training, she sit with them in the house for a little bit. Of course, I have dogs too, so that helps distract them from me, because they're like, oh, that dog is way more of a predator than the human. Yeah. So the dogs distract them a little bit. But a training technique that I actually started doing a couple years ago, back for eons, all people do is put a piece of food on their fist and expect that bird to bend down and eat. That bird didn't get no food until it did that. What I do now is I'll have, for example, we use a lot of Coturnix quail for food. So I'll put the leg of a Coturnix quail on my fist, but then I take the breast of that quail and I cut it up in little tiny cubes. They call them tidbits, about the size of the tip of my pinky. And I'll take a bamboo skewer, which is, anywhere from 12 to 18 inches long. That way my hand is a good distance away, and I'll stab that little tidbit, and I'll put it right up in the bird's beak, and I'll rub their beak with it. And it's a natural reaction to snap at it. And they're like, hey, that was a piece of meat. And I can do this day one. with a bird. Do it, and then do it again, and then slowly you're just bringing that stick down a little bit farther and farther. Eventually, they're bending over to take a bite off that skewer. Eventually, you get it down just above that quail leg, and they're like, "Oh, there's a big piece of meat there." And the reason you use the leg is because it's something you can hold on to, and they can't just swallow it whole. Well, they could swallow it whole if they wanted to. That way, pick at it, because the most vulnerable that bird will ever be to you is when they're bent over, showing you the back of their head. You are a predator to them. That is what they see as the most vulnerable part of their body, is the back of their head. Once you break that barrier of them eating on the fist vigorously, you've won. But it's not. It's the hardest step. After that, it's food. They gotta earn their food. We're not hurting them in any stretch of the imagination. We treat them like a boxer treats himself. Before every fight, a boxer weighs himself in, right? We do that with the bird. We weigh the bird day 1. We weigh the bird day 20,000 if we have the bird that long. We weigh that. The only time I don't weigh my birds is right now. It's the off season. I'm feeding them, but she's molting. She's going to drop all her feathers and grow in all new ones. So I don't need to weigh her. I don't want to weigh her. I don't want to stress her out. I just want her to be left alone. I feed her. I go in and check on her, make sure she's doing okay. Give her fresh water when she needs it. And she's already got one tail feather growing in. It's red because she's gonna be, once they molt, their adult feathers come in. That's when because an immature red tail doesn't have a red tail, it has a brown tail.
Oh.
Well, everybody likes that red tail. So now she's got her center feathers are called decks. Her first deck has already fallen, and the new feather is growing in. That one's red already. I saw it yesterday for the first time because I actually tried to look for it. But it's a long process, so we just let them be, feed them up. Come September, October, I'll start bringing her weight back down, and then I'll start every day. I'll weigh her. I get her back in that weight range where she's, above this and she wants to ignore me, and below this she's tired, she has no energy. But in that window, she is a fit athlete. She has energy. She has power. I went to a Falconer meet in Illinois in February, and I had 2 birds at the time. I had my red tail and I had a goshawk. My red tail, of course, a lot of guys from Indiana went, and they hadn't seen me flying either one of my birds. And a new guy, he's a first-year apprentice with his first bird. I met him at our picnic last year, and we hit it off and talking, and I've been helping him out when I can. He's got questions, so I help him out when I can. So he saw my red tail fly, and he's like, "Dude, that thing flies with power." I'm like, "That's because it's a squirrel hawk. It has to. It doesn't have a choice." So like their breastbone, it's called the keel. We actually feel that, and you can judge the health of the bird by that, especially when you first catch them. You kind of do like a health assessment check on the bird. Well, I felt his bird's keel, and then I had him feel my bird's keel, and he was like, "Holy cow, there's a huge difference there." His bird's fit, but his bird, because he's new, his bird it's fit, but it doesn't have the muscle tone that my bird does.
Mm-hmm.
Not because, like I said, his bird's not healthy. Not healthy. It's just his inexperience because he's new. He will learn that stuff over time. And I explained to him how to get that physical muscle. Like it's almost like his like a track runner. Most track runners are kind of skinny and they can run all day long. That's what his bird does. His bird will run all day long. My bird is more like the 100-yard sprinter that can do it. She might have to do it, and then she might only take a break for a minute, but then she's ready to go again because they have different muscle levels and different power levels. He hunts rabbits all the time, so his bird's flying out of a tree and flaps probably a dozen times and wings over and crashes on a rabbit.
That's crazy.
Up, sideways, downwards, up and down, going all over the place because that squirrel is 3-dimensional, a rabbit's 2-dimensional.
Wow.
And it makes a difference. People see the difference once like if they've never seen it and they never see the bird fly like that, it's just something you don't notice because you're not around it. It's just nature of the beast, unfortunately. Until you see it, you're like, wow, and it makes a difference.
I can only imagine, like, it's just got to be like a crazy rush. So I guess what I'll ask is, do you hunt anything other than squirrels with your birds? Are you strictly like a squirrel guy?
Now, the goshawk that I spoke of,
Mm-hmm.
he was rabbits and ducks.
Oh, ducks.
Yeah. Now, see,
Wow.
a goshawk is a different beast altogether. Like, the best way to explain a red tail is like a 12 gauge pump shotgun, or they get the job done. They're not too fancy unless you go out west and you trap one that's like a Kreiders or a Harlan's. The Kreiders are almost, some of them can be almost pure white, and the Harlan's can be almost pure black, and everything in between. And then what we have here in Indiana and New York, what they call are just a eastern red tail. They're not too fancy. You know, you might catch a little bit lighter one once in a while, or a little bit chocolatier one once in a while, but they all look, for the most part, fairly close, fairly similar to each other. Yes, you can identify individual birds if you put them next to each other, but they're fairly basic. But they get the job done, like a 12 gauge pump shot or pickup truck. A goshawk is like a Ferrari. High speed, high maintenance, high energy, high wire. They can actually die from something scaring them bad enough.
Huh.
They are very sensitive to a lot of things. They can get sick very easy. You have to be on top of your game to fly them healthy all season, day in, day out, and really pay attention what you're doing. You have to know bird body language more with a goshawk, which is part of the accipiter family. The accipiters, you really have to be on top of your game and paying attention to a lot of body language from the birds, and really be paying attention to what's going on with the bird. And use your scale religiously, know how to use it properly. Because sometimes people just think it's a number on the scale you're looking for. There's a lot of things tied into it. But with a goshawk, you can catch anything considered small game. All the way from quail, duck, some guys have caught geese.
My God.
Rabbit. Female goshawk, you can't catch squirrels. You can go out west and catch pheasant and grouse, and guys even caught sparrows with goshawks. I mean, you can catch literally anything with a goshawk. You can catch a lot of guys doing it in a different manner. A duck is off your fist. Walk up, you are the dog, you flush the game. The goshawk takes off your fist as fast as it can. Sometimes it catches a rabbit in 10 feet. Sometimes it catches it in 2 yards. It is a sight to see. And then your red tail, you're putting it in a tree most times. And you're the dog, you're flushing the game. Like with rabbits, the rabbit takes off out of the hedgerow. The red tail comes down at a 45-degree angle and just power slams into it like a football player. And that's cool to watch. But I like squirrels for the red tail better than I do rabbit hawk. That's why I have the goshawk for rabbits, the red tail for squirrels.
All right, so when you go out and hunt squirrels, like, so I'm real quiet, and I'm waiting for them to start cutting nuts, and I'm shooting them out of the tree with a 22. Like, how are you going after them? You just trying to tree them?
We are not quiet. We make tons of noise, and you can take 50 people out in the field with you, and you're still going to be successful.
Wow.
It's a different game. For example, I use a defense lacrosse shaft as my hawking stick. Some guys use bamboo sticks. Some guys use garden rake handles. There are lots of different things. And when I'm squirrel hunting, I put my bird up in the tree. I walk through the woods in kind of a zigzag pattern. And I literally smack trees as I walk past them. And if the bird sees a squirrel, she'll fly over, and I'll key off that. I will watch her body, and that's the other thing. Body language is a huge deal with these birds. They will show you where the squirrel is if you don't see it, because they know where it is. It might have froze to where they can't see it at that exact moment, but they know it's there. So my job is to now get that squirrel to even twitch an ear, twitch their eye, twitch the tip of their tail.
Wow.
So I'll walk over and I start smacking the tree with my stick and making all types of noise and sounds. Like, our game call is ho, ho, ho. No matter if you're hunting rabbits or squirrels or what, it doesn't matter. When you flush game, everybody's to holler ho, ho, ho. That keys the bird in on that, hey, game was flushed. If you do it enough, it's just operant conditioning. Hey, there goes game. There's that call every time. Eventually, your bird can be 5 miles, well, not 5 miles, but far enough away to where they didn't see the squirrel. If I beat on a tree with my stick and holler ho, 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 and I tell her up, 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 because I want her to look up, she will fly over into the tree that I'm beating on, probably halfway up, and then start climbing, looking for the squirrel, because I only do that when there is a squirrel, not a maybe, not a possible. 100% I saw a squirrel or I heard its nails on the bark or whatnot, and the game is on. It's a cat and mouse chess match. She will literally climb, we call it laddering. She'll jump from branch to branch, slowly, up higher, a little bit at a time. But while she's doing that, you see her head do this. She's looking all over the place. She's looking for that squirrel because I told her it was there by my actions. And when she sees it, you will see the wheels start turning in her head. Okay, what do I got to do to catch that squirrel? Squirrel moves over here, I need to go over here. Or the squirrel comes over on this side, I need to come over on this side. You really see the game. And it's up in front of you. You can see it. You can take spectators, and spectators can see it. When you're rabbit hawking, you flush a rabbit, that rabbit will be caught 150 yards that way, and you just hear the squeal in the distance. All the bird caught it, or sometimes you don't hear the squeal at all, and then you have to wait for your bird to come up. If the bird comes up, it missed. If it doesn't come up after a few minutes, you should go look for your bird. It's probably got the rabbit. So sometimes you get to see the rabbit catch, sometimes you don't. Most squirrel catches, you see. They're in your face. To the point of, just this season alone, my red tail knocked squirrels out of a tree at least 4 different times where they almost hit me in the face on the way down to the ground.
My God.
Like the squirrels, because she hits it and knocks it off the tree, and it comes flying past me, so I duck, and then the bird's right there after it, and usually that's the squirrel that gets away because I duck and dive out of the way because I don't want to get smacked in the face, and the squirrel, makes it to brush or something, and then the bird has to start the game all over again.
Now, do they not usually just grab them off the limb and bring them to you, or are they trying to knock them down and then try to come down on top of them? The goal is to catch it in the tree. Mm-hmm. The goal is for the bird to catch a squirrel in the tree because on the ground, it's kind of like a rabbit flight. To the aspect, obviously, the squirrels aren't. But what the squirrels will do is they'll run past a tree and then dive on the back and run up. So the bird has no shot at them. If you keep the squirrel in the tree, it's a chess match. The bird has to use his brain. The squirrel has to use his brain. So when the squirrel cart starts coming and run down the tree, I try to get to that side of the tree and scare it back up by hitting the tree and hollering and doing the things I got to do to get it to change its mind. Yeah.
Because the squirrels are so smart, you have to make them make a mistake for the bird to be successful usually. But when they hit the squirrel in the tree, sometimes it sounds like someone took a baseball bat and smashed the tree as hard as they can. They'll hit it so hard sometimes.
Damn.
And then other times they'll just rake it off the side, where they'll just make a glassing pass and manage to grab the squirrel, and then they rip it out. But then they'll actually parachute down where they'll spin because they'll have their wings at just the right angle, and they'll spin them like a helicopter, and that's pretty cool to see. Other times, like I've had, like this past season with this bird, she actually grabbed a squirrel, and the angle of her angle coming in versus the angle the squirrel was on the tree, when she hit it, she fell backwards with the squirrel on her feet in front of her, and her back actually hit like 4 branches on the way down, and the fourth one righted her back up, so that way when she hit the ground, she was on top of it. That was pretty crazy.
They're pretty tough birds then, huh?
Oh, red tail is the only thing tougher than a red tail is an eagle.
Really?
They're I can't say they're indestructible, but there'll always be a spot in my mew for red tail.
Yeah.
When the right red tail comes along, I can't say no. Like, for example, this red tail that I have right now, her name is Ripley. Okay. I was out trapping just to trap. I was bored. Me and my wife were out on I don't remember what day of the week it was, but we were out for a drive. And I take the trap with me when I'm doing something like that because one trapping season, I had the ability to bring home the bright bird. I had my goshawk, so I wasn't worried about bringing home a red tail. But I told her before trapping season even started, I told my wife, I'm like, I'm only going to bring home the right red tail. And we trapped down 4 or 5 birds, and nothing was really clicking, so I wasn't worried about it. I do it for fun because I just love it so much. And ironically, my wife saw the bird, and she just swung her hand and went, bird! And she almost hit me in the face. Not on purpose, but she was just so excited she saw the bird before I did, because I'm really good at spotting them. And we set the trap, and that bird gave me every indication that it was a keeper before I got my hands on it. Like, there was literally I have a checklist that I mentally run through my brain once I set the trap out. And that bird literally hit every check mark. Boom, boom, boom. Like, I'm like, this is looking good. And usually we call it ground shrinkage. Once you have the bird on the trap and you know it's caught and you run up to secure the bird, they always look big sitting on a pole or on a fence or something. And then when you get up to them, you're like, it's an okay sized bird or whatever. Well, this bird got bigger when I got there. I'm like, ooh, this don't happen to me very often. So I was really stoked. I was excited. I was every word you could think of to say why I'd be glowing. And I didn't bring a scale with me that day. Usually I have a scale with me to weigh the bird before I get home, so I'm not wasting my time. And there's just something about that bird. I'm like, man, I'm taking it home. I'm gonna weigh it. And she's actually the biggest red tail I've ever personally had. I mean, she's not huge by any stretch of the imagination as far as red tails are concerned, but biggest one I've ever personally had.
What's considered big?
3.5 pounds.
3.5 pounds
is big. Most female red tails go in the 2.5 pound range.
Huh.
Most. She's like 2 3/4 or close to it. I actually helped a friend catch a bird this year that was almost 4 pounds.
Wow.
I mean, it was fat.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was shaking like a leaf once I put that thing on the scale. I was like, it was bad. I was like, I'm like, dude, if I didn't already have a red tail, I wouldn't be able to hand you this bird right now.
I'm keeping it.
It was a monster, and he's enjoying it. I know, and we caught it late in the season, like really late in the trapping season. He only got to hunt it a little bit, but he still caught game with it, and it's just a brute. It's a big bird. Like most people would die to have a bird like that, and I helped my buddy get it. But I enjoy that aspect of it. He's like, hey, I want to go get a new bird. Okay. So we jumped in the truck, and ironically, we caught it in the parking lot of a fitness center. It was in town.
Wow.
Happened to drive by and saw it and got lucky, and it's a beast.
Now, are you allowed to just go into like a Walmart parking lot and trap one, or do you have to have like permission from those people, or you just wait till they run?
I would almost call that a gray area, because to even stop and explain that to somebody, you know what I mean? It's probably the best way for me to explain it would be this season, one of the first birds I caught was actually in a Burger King parking lot by the front door of the store.
Oh my God. That'd make a hell of a YouTube video.
I was really wishing I had a video camera with me, because it was very surreal, the situation. We drove by and we saw the bird sitting on the light pole in the parking lot. And I pull in, I'm like, I'm going to try this just because. and the bird, and I was like, where can we even set the trap so the bird can see it? So I'm like, near the door is probably the closest spot, but there's a little strip of grass next to the edge of the parking lot. And I set the trap on the strip of grass, and the bird comes down almost instantly. A minivan pulls in, I'm talking in the parking spot next to the trap. Like if the guy had taken 2 steps to his left, he'd have stepped on the grass and scared the bird. But the bird didn't pay no attention to him because it was so focused on the gerbils. He didn't even see the bird. He went in the restaurant.
Now, is the trap like hidden, or is it like pretty obvious?
I mean, it's painted a flat greenish color.
Yeah.
But you got 2 gerbils in it that are running around in circles.
Yeah, like you would think something sketchy if you walked by it. You'd be like, yeah, that's not supposed to be here.
Part of this whole thing is my wife was with me. I had a falconry t-shirt on. Actually, I think we both did. But the guy that parked next to his bird didn't even see it. He was in this restaurant for literally minutes, came out and left, and that bird didn't pay no attention to him, and he never saw it.
Oh, my God.
When it looked like the bird was snared, I started to approach, and a guy that came through the drive-thru saw the bird on the ground and stopped and was like, what is going on? Like, he saw something was up, and then he saw me grab the bird, so I stopped and talked to him for like 10 minutes with the bird in my hand in the parking lot at Burger King. And he's like, I saw the bird. He goes, I've always been fascinated by birds of prey. He's like, and then I saw the thing it was standing on, and I knew something was up. He goes, but I didn't know what. He goes, then I see you walking across the parking lot with a glove on. He's like, I think this has got to be a falconer catching this bird. And he's like, I was right. He goes, so like I said, so I stopped and talked for like 10 minutes, and me and my wife had a good chat with the guy, and he was like, can I take a picture of it? We're like, yeah, sure, whatever, you know. And the bird just wasn't what I was looking for, so I cut it loose. But that was probably as far as trapping, that's probably one of the most interesting trapping situations I've had. Because it was just, I never thought in my entire life I would catch a bird in a Burger King parking lot in the middle of a city. I just never thought it would happen.
Now, have you ever had any kind of run-ins with like game wardens or anything like that? I assume that they probably check on you guys and stuff like that, or no?
I've never had we have to have our stuff, like my building, I had to have it inspected before I could actually get a bird.
Right.
So they know where you live. They know you have a license. They know the licenses exist. Believe it or not, most of the game wardens don't. I mean, they know the sport is. They don't know a lot of the laws. But that's because their job is to focus on deer hunters and turkey hunters and fishermen, and that's what they focus on, most of it. Like, obviously, they have to make phone calls and send emails to verify things because it's literally a piece of paper that it's official, but even in my eyes, it doesn't really look too official.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. It's
I guess they would probably assume
they don't exist, but they don't harass. It's not like we get harassed or anything like that. Obviously, if we have a problem, we call them.
Yeah.
I know some of the guys have taken some of the they're not called DC officers here, but the conservation officers here in Indiana. I know they've been hawking with some of the guys, so they've seen it, they know about it. When the gentleman actually came and inspected my facility, he's like, hey, you been hawking over here? I'm like, no, not yet. I go, I wouldn't even have thought to go there. He's like, there's a lot of rabbits that are going over there. It's cool. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I bet you they assume, like, since you guys are kind of like you guys are just like a small knit kind of community, that most of you probably play by the rules. There's not a whole lot of bad apples as to where like deer hunters and stuff poach.
There's always bad apples in anything.
Yeah.
But you get the people that truly care.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with you, 100%. Losing my falconer license would be devastating to me.
Yeah.
So I do everything in my ability to make sure I'm following the regs 100%. If I break a law, I can tell you right now, it's 100% by accident. It's not on purpose. It's not me trying to be shady or skirting around something like, oh, I can bend the rules a little bit. No, I 100% didn't know. If I did. As far as I know, I never have, because I make sure I read those regs. Like our rabbit season here in Indiana with a gun is from November to February. I get to hunt rabbits with my hawk in September, but I'm only allowed 2 a day. But once November 1st hits, I'm allowed the limit of, it's 5, right?
Yeah, I think it's 5.
So I'm allowed 5 after November 1st. Catching 5 with a hawk is a pretty tall order. I've caught 3 this past season with my goss in one day. I actually almost had 4, but he lost the last one as I was trying to help him with it. But that was a record for me, even catching 3. But
what about squirrels? How many is it hard to get? I think that the limit here is 5. Is it hard to get 5 in one day?
I've tripled on squirrels in the past in New York.
Yeah.
Once. I've doubled a whole lot. The bird that I'm currently flying now, because we're hunting fox squirrels, they're tough. They're bigger. They're tougher. So it's asking a lot of her. But I know she's capable. I doubled with her twice successfully. I went for doubles a total of 6 times, and it was just randomness that she wasn't successful on the second one. Sometimes for like a couple times her weight was just so high that she wasn't in the game after the first one, which was my fault. And then one time it just got dark. Like she was gung ho, she was trying hard, and by the time she was like, "I'm done," I had to call her down to the lure, and I thought I was going to pull out a flashlight. It was. I mean, I could still see her in the tree, but it was pretty dark, and I was like, "Yeah, she's done. She wants to roost now. She wants to go to bed." So I called her down the lure, and she come right down. No big deal. But,
now, do you ever worry about them running off? Or like, I guess not running is the right word. I guess flying off is the right
flying
word.
Away.
Did they ever get away?
It's possible. Knock on wood. I've been lucky. I've never had that happen while hunting. In my entire career, I've only lost one bird of the wild in my entire career, and it was my very first kestrel that I had. I was 18 years old, and it was just a freak thing. Like a kid, I was a kid still at 18.
Yeah.
My mom didn't care if I let the bird fly around the house a little bit once in a while. And when my sister came home from my aunt's house, I didn't hear her get dropped off, or I'd pick the bird up. And the bird was actually sitting on a thing behind the front door. And when my sister opened the door, it spooked him, and out the door he went. And I just never got him back.
Yeah.
But like I said, that was my fault. It's not nothing, some random crazy thing happened, but just stupidity on my part. But as far as out hunting with a bird, I've never lost one. I've had situations where I couldn't find them for a few minutes, but it was never like I was in dire straits. Oh my God, where's my bird? But we also put telemetry on the birds. It's a little radio transmitter that puts out a signal, and I have a receiver that picks it up. So if the bird does take off for some random reason, like I actually had to track my goshawk to the apartment complex this past season. I was flying him on ducks off a pretty big pond, and there was probably 60 ducks on this pond. And he missed the duck, flew up to the very tippy top of a tree. I bet you it was a good 60, 70 foot tall tree, and he's on the tippy top of this thing. And some ducks were flying by in the distance, and he's like, "I'm going after those ducks." Well, those ducks pitched into this apartment complex because there's a pond in that apartment complex, and landed in there, and he just started chasing every duck that was flying through the apartment complex. And I had a signal. I wasn't worried. I just didn't want him. My biggest thing was I didn't want him catching something and somebody doing something to him because it's in an apartment complex.
Yeah.
Because anything could happen in that situation. So I was more worried about that. I wasn't worried about losing him. It was more getting him, and then he actually banked back around, and I saw him. I got in front of him, and he come down to my lure once I got to a spot where he could see me. He's like, "Oh, there you are," and he come down. But that was only maybe 20 minutes total time from the time of the flushing the ducks off the pond to me getting them down. That's probably the longest I've really had a telemetry search.
Have you ever had anybody see it take down a squirrel or a duck or something and freak out on you?
No, when I was in New York, I was mostly hunting big state properties.
Yeah.
Or hunting, or I was on private properties, so I never had that issue. Never even I had people like that'd be hunting and they walk by and they're like, "Hey, was that your bird over there?" Yeah, because they see me in my getup, and I don't have a gun with me and I'm in the woods by myself.
Yeah.
Talking and whatnot, and they're like, "Wow,
He's
but
crazy. Yeah.
yeah, I've actually had that situation. That's a pretty good funny story actually. But here I'm hunting town a lot actually. But the areas we're hunting, they see me, and they kind of know what we're doing, but they are not. They think it's interesting because it's just you don't see it.
Yeah.
Like this one field I have that has, I call it the tree of life. It's a giant pecan tree. I mean giant, in the middle of a soybean field.
Huh.
With a hedgerow 40 yards away. And
Ah.
once in a while, them squirrels will bail for that hedgerow. Sometimes they make it. Sometimes
they don't.
And when
Man,
she
that's
hits them in
awesome.
that situation, there was a couple times I wish I had a video camera for that. Which I have a knockoff GoPro.
Yeah.
That it's. I mean, I use it for checking my Kestrel boxes. That's pretty much the only reason I have it. But I need to get a better one because there was one that she actually caught. She actually hit it so hard they spun like 520 degrees, just, and it was instant. And she grabbed it by 1 foot, and they just spun because of the inertia and the impact. And she managed to hang on and subdued that squirrel. And then, but in this place that I call the Tree of Life, it's near a bank, and the girls will watch through the window.
Oh my
the
gosh.
drive-through window, because the drive-through window faces the Tree of Life.
Yeah.
And like a couple times they've come out, "Hey, can we take pictures?" And yeah, no problem, And then, but most people are pretty nice about it. Sometimes they'll act like if they have no idea what you're doing and they see you with the bird or whatever, they'll, "Hey, what are you doing?" And you explain, they're like, "Okay, that's different," But we get the kind of, we don't have to worry about gun hunters.
Yeah.
When I'm hunting in town.
Right.
I don't, only once in my 25 years have I had someone threaten to shoot my bird, and it was a crazy person in a crazy situation. And I mean, they didn't, but they just kind of threatened me a little bit. But they weren't threatening me personally. They're like, "Well, we can just shoot the bird because that's too easy." I'm like, "No, using guns way easier.
Yeah.
I can limit out every time I go squirrel hunting with a gun. Every time I have."
There's a lot of training that goes into that. They don't realize.
People I've even had people call the bird a feathered missile before. I'm like, it's not like a heat-seeking missile. It's not a guarantee. There's so much involved. Falconry is your highest of highs and your lowest of lows. For example, my goshawk, I actually had to put him down. Because when I was in Illinois on that hunting trip that I went with my friends, my first day hunting, because it was a whole weekend of hunting. I drove up Thursday afternoon, Friday morning. I met one guy from Michigan and one guy from Illinois, and we went hunting. I watched the one guy catch a rabbit with his red tail. The other guy got his red tail out, which was actually a rehab bird. He's basically just doing the bird a favor. But the bird was kind of lackluster that day. Wasn't really feeling it. So I got my goshawk out, caught a rabbit, went to another spot, caught a rabbit. And I'm like, we're going to see if we can limit out, because the limit in Illinois was 4. I'm like, I'm going to see if we can limit out. After the second rabbit, we flushed a couple bunnies, and they made their escape. Well, then another rabbit come through in a nice wide opening, and he just poured the juice on. And the rabbit, I don't know, I've heard it called like a bunch of different things, but hog fence, anti-climb fence, whatever they want to call it. But it's the wire mesh. It's the 5-inch perfect squares.
Yeah.
He actually normally would fly over that type of fence because we have it here, and he's seen it. He's actually flown over fence and caught rabbits before. And the rabbit he caught minutes prior, he actually flew over the fence, chased the rabbit through the pasture, back over the fence, and caught the rabbit on the other side of the fence. I mean, it was a beautiful flight. The guys were hooping and hollering for me and everything. But on this particular situation, instead of trying to fly over the fence, he tried to thread the needle through one of the holes in the fence. And he actually hit his wing high up on the left shoulder, and it actually broke it so high up that ironically we were hunting on the best Raptor University vet clinic in the state of Illinois on the campus.
Oh, wow.
So from the time of impact to standing in the office was about half an hour. And the vet, obviously after doing x-rays, it was broke so high up she couldn't fix it. And what am I going to do with a one-winged goshawk?
Yeah.
So it was a pretty bad day for me, but it was, like I said, falconry has some of the highest of highs. That bird put on a beautiful show for witnesses that, they've seen goshawks high, but like they were complimenting me, and it's one of the highs. And then minutes later, it's the lowest of low. And I unfortunately had to put him down because this is a hunting sport. They are not pets. They are like, I love them. Yes, they don't love me. My goshawk was an imprint. I got him at 12 days old from a breeder. I raised him from a fluff ball.
Wow.
For a machine, and he was a killing machine. That's what his purpose was, and he was good at it. Part of the reason I'm a squirrel hawker is because where I lived in New York, we just didn't have rabbits. I'd flown goshawks at squirrels. I've flown red-tailed squirrels. I've flown haresawks at squirrels. In my 20-some years in falconry, New York, I've only caught 22 rabbits in my career.
Oh, wow.
I crushed that. This is my first hunting season. This past season was my first hunting season in the state of Indiana myself, and I crushed that in one season.
Yeah, there's plenty of rabbits around here to go around.
On top of catching squirrels with my red tail. I mean, I did catch some rabbits with my red tail, but most of them I didn't catch until after I had to put my goshawk down, and squirrel season closed. And my apprentice was like, "Are we still going hawking?" So I caught some rabbits with her at the end of the season. But
yeah.
Almost all her kills were squirrels. My goss, all season, caught one duck, and the rest of it was rabbits. But he was catching rabbits. That was his job. He was my rabbit hawk.
Man, that's got to be a wild sight to see. I hate to cut this podcast off because I'm really enjoying it. I'll probably have to get you on here for maybe like a part 2 or something. But we're kind of a little bit over an hour right now. So I guess I know everybody's going to ask this. I know we've talked about it a little bit over text message, but if whatever it's after, like if it's after a squirrel or after a duck or whatever, and it comes down and it's not dead, how do you dispatch it? Are you just like hitting it with a club or?
There's many ways to do it, but obviously I try to do everything as humane as possible. Rabbits is actually very easy. I grab, like with my gloved hand, I'll grab the rabbit around the neck, and then my free hand, I will grab the back legs, and you just do like a little jerk, and it'll actually sever the vertebrae in the neck, and it's instant death. There's no suffering, because if I just left the bird there to feed on it, that rabbit's gonna suffer, because that bird's just gonna start feeding it. Don't get me wrong, Red Tail, when she catches a rabbit, she puts a hurting on it. She's like, I don't know, like I said, she didn't catch a lot of rabbits this season because she's my squirrel hawk. Now, mind you, all the game that I caught, I just saved it for summer for feeding because that's the most expensive time to care for your bird is the summertime because you want them to eat as much as possible. So I'm thawing these rabbits out to feed her, and I've thawed out 3 of them that have had broken back legs from her hitting them so hard. So even if she lost them, they may have suffered, So, it's just like any other hunting thing. You're going to take the ethical hunting shot. You're not just going to start blasting at the deer.
Yeah.
I want my bird I'm going to ethically put that rabbit down. Squirrel, some people don't see it as ethical, but how are you supposed to put down something that is going to bite you if it's wiggling around? Your bird knows what part is dangerous, so the bird has its feet wrapped around its head and the chest, and you have to put that squirrel down. Squirrels you can't really stretch like the rabbit can because just the size, and squirrels are one of the toughest creatures ever created. Squirrels are way tougher than any rabbit. So I use an awl that's got like a 6-inch blade on it, like a nice pick. It's got a nice handle on it that I built a holster so it's on my hawking bag. and I'll stick the squirrel through the head, the chest, wherever I can put ethically, humanely put it down. And then there are times, it doesn't happen a lot, that the prey is dead when you get there. Ironically, one of the rabbits that my red tail did catch at the end of the season, from the time we flushed the rabbit, because my apprentice was with me, from the time we flushed the rabbit to the time me finding her on the rabbit was probably 90 seconds, so not long. And when I got up there, the rabbit was already done. But there was blood everywhere, and because there was a little bit of snow on the ground. I was like, "What is why is there so much blood?" When I got there, she actually had managed to grab the rabbit. Originally, the moment of impact was in one of the back legs, and she actually hit the femoral artery in the rabbit, and it bled out before I even got there. So in less than 90 seconds, that rabbit was dead. Yeah. I didn't have to do anything. I just traded her off, and took my picture and whatnot. But it's, they don't bring it back. They can't. That's always the first few questions most people always ask is, one, do they bring it back? And two, you have the glove, right? Like, I don't know why. Like, the glove is the significant thing that you have to prove to people that you are a falconer. Like, you got the glove, right? Like, yeah. I get that question. I actually personally get that question more than I do. They bring it back. Like, how do you train the bird to bring it back? Well,
yeah, I know that was my initial question was, does it just fly and
right?
Bring it
and that's
back?
Why I bring that up, because most people have that reaction.
Yeah.
Of they bring it back to you. Like, how do you do that? Well, a rabbit, they can, like, don't get me wrong, my bird can drag a rabbit really well.
Yeah.
Like, if she wants to, she can just about run with it, but she ain't gonna take off and fly with it. Now, a squirrel, once it's dead, if she tried hard enough, she can get some lift, but it's not like she's going to get up and just soar away with it.
Yeah.
But a squirrel, they're struggling with. They wrestle with it, and I mean, it's like a bronco ride. They'll be spinning around on the ground and everything else sometimes. So I have to help her. Rabbits, she can control them pretty good. Now the goshawk, when he was catching rabbits, he would like run up their back and get on their head.
My gosh.
Once they're on the head, the rabbit stops.
Yeah.
When they grab it by the back end, it's a bronco ride, especially because I had a male goshawk. A female goshawk's got a little more weight to her, so she can hold them down a little bit better. But my male goshawk, he'd grab them, get a hold of them, and then he'd climb up their back, and get on their head to stop them. So sometimes he'd be drugged. Actually, I have a really good story for that. It's probably one of the most memorable things I'll ever probably have happen in my career, and it happened this season with my goss. He caught a rabbit in I'm talking, this was a beautiful flight. It was, I didn't think he was going to catch it. I just did not think there was a chance in the entire world he's going to catch his rabbit. He takes off. Now, he's on my fist. My buddy's flushing, and the rabbit runs out, like, it busts out of the hedgerow, but it stayed in the middle of the hedgerow, running down the center of it, trying to get across probably 40 yards of field into a ditch on the other side, which has brush around it. And we're probably back close to 100 yards down the center of this hedgerow, working towards that 40-yard gap, pushing that way. He saw the rabbit in the hedgerow move. So I let him go. He took off, and he flew above the hedgerow, and you could see his wing beat. And then when that rabbit started to break, his wing beat changed, and he just turned it into high gear and took off like a bullet. Gone. And I started running, and I wasn't even to the end of the hedgerow yet, and I heard the squealing from the rabbit. The sound of victory. So I get over to the ditch, and I see him down on the rabbit. As I walk down into the ditch, I'm literally reaching for the rabbit to help him, and the rabbit freaks out because it sees me, jumps up, and runs into a culvert under the ground with my bird attached to it.
Oh my God.
Like, I'm talking 30 feet in. And this was a small culvert. That's the first time I've truly panicked, I think, hawking. Because I'm like, how am I getting my bird back? I wasn't worried about the rabbit at this point. I was worried about how am I getting my bird back. Because the worst case scenario I thought of was he eats the rabbit in there, and he stays in there. It's dark, and a raccoon just walks in and kills him in the middle of the night. Like, that was my biggest fear at that point. My friend that was with me is so claustrophobic, he instantly went into a panic attack, knowing that the bird was in there and that we had to get him out. So after a little bit I calmed myself down. I started to think a little bit. I actually took my lure and threw it in the pipe as far as I could and wiggled it with my flashlight from my cell phone on it, where he did drag the rabbit probably 5 feet closer to me. So now we're talking 25 feet in. And then, of course, because he's trying to drag the rabbit's like, oh, I might have a chance to escape. It started to kick. So he throws both his other foot back on the rabbit, because he was holding it by just one at that point. And because the rabbit was kicking out, it actually slid closer and closer. And I'm like, man, like, but he's still so far away. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so finally, I'm like, I'm taking my gear off. I'm going in. I have to get my bird. So I thought about it. I had my 5-foot defense lacrosse shaft with me, my hawking stick. I put that in front of me, and I started to crawl in the pipe. I got in as far as I could. Now, my buddy told me that the only thing sticking out of the pipe was the soles of my boots. I was in there all the way. I had my hawking stick out in front of me, and my hawking stick is 5 feet long, and I still couldn't reach them. So I scooched in just a little bit more, and I was able to actually take the tip of my hawking stick and kind of loop it behind the rabbit just a little bit and slide them towards me a couple of times. And then I scooched in like one last 3-inch stretch, had my fingers out in front of me, and I was able to grab one of the legs of the rabbit, the back legs. And I'm like, I got him! So I started to slide out, and I managed to get my bird out.
Wow.
By the time I got done, because of the echoing through the pipe, I had a migraine. But I was so happy he didn't lose the rabbit, but I'll never forget that. And I hope I never have to go through that again.
Now, would he just not come back? Would he not come back to you after he ate the rabbit if you were just like?
Well, see, that's the thing. It's all on food drive. When we take them hunting, they're hungry. They want to catch their dinner.
Yeah.
But they're physically fit. They're like my goshawk when he was in condition, when he caught that rabbit, even if he had lost that rabbit and spent nights outside, he wouldn't. It's not like he died overnight or something.
Yeah.
They're physically fit. They have fat deposits. They're healthy. They're very healthy. If they weren't healthy, they'd die.
Yeah.
Our sport wouldn't exist.
That's wild.
Yeah, and it's so just getting my bird back made it. That was a high. That was one of the highest highs because I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And we still got the rabbit. I wasn't worried about the rabbit at this point. I just wanted my bird back because I didn't want nothing bad to happen to him. And he held on. He did 5 minutes, not 8 seconds, And but he was I hope to duplicate him in the future. I will get another goshawk, and if that goshawk turns out half as good as that bird, half as good, I will be happy. Because I put my when you raise them like that, you're putting so much time and effort into them.
Yeah.
As a baby chick, raising it up, getting it hunting, they know what they need to do. You just got to show them what they need. They know they need to catch stuff. You got to show them what to catch. Now, a passage bird, all you're doing is teaching it to deal with a predator. You are the predator, and then get used to the predator you being around, and they figure stuff out. It's different for every bird, but I don't know how to explain it sometimes. Their hunting is natural. They let us be a part of it. I get the best bird watching things possible. Just like with squirrels. Squirrels my favorite wild mammal, hands down. Not because I'm a falconer. I've just always been in love with squirrels. I've always thought squirrels were fascinating. But gun hunting squirrels and hawking squirrels, you see that squirrel do things you'll never see it do with a gun.
Yeah.
For example, have you ever seen a squirrel jump out of the top of a 70-foot tall tree, go full Superman, hit the ground, bounce, and run away like nothing happened?
No, but I've heard they do that. I heard they always land on their feet. Yeah, that's
and
wild.
I see it all the time. See what I'm saying? You squirrel hunt with a gun, the squirrel runs to the top of the tree, you shoot it with 22 or shoot it with a shotgun, it falls to the ground, you go pick it up. My hawk has to fly up there, chase it around, and make it lose its patience, make a mistake, make it slip, make it do something, or me make it do something to where its attention is diverted just long enough for it to make that mistake, and for the bird to capitalize.
It's how they're naturally hunted versus just how human. It's very easy for them to avoid humans.
Right. The only thing different between me hunting it with a hawk and the hawk hunting it by itself is I can make that squirrel make a mistake sooner than the hawk can. Sometimes. It's not even all the time. It's once in a while. Like I have a friend back home. He's had the same red tail for like 10 years. And she is, I call her the beast. He averages 100 to 130 squirrels a season with his bird.
Wow.
He doubles most days with her, and he hunts on average 5 to 7 days a week. His job allows him to hunt after work. He hunts on the weekends. Like, the only time he really takes a break is when he's deer hunting. And he doesn't do a ton of that. He does, but not a ton. And when he flies her, I know when she's going to catch the squirrel. Like, as soon as I can see the squirrel running through the tree, and I go, you just screwed up. And she catches it seconds later. Because I know what his bird is capable of, and I know what that squirrel, I've seen her squirrels make mistakes enough, because I've seen him fly her enough that you just messed up, you're dead.
It's a chess
she comes
match.
out of nowhere, and yeah, you became a pawn. You were no longer the queen of the tree. You were now the pawn, and the bird catches it almost every time. Like, we can look at each other and go, that squirrel just screwed up, and his bird catches it within 30 seconds. If I'm out hunting with him,
man,
and it's just
I'm gonna have to get on YouTube and look up, because I'm sure there's guys that carry cameras doing this stuff.
Oh yeah, literally just type in squirrel hawking, and there's I can't remember what state she's in. I think she's in Alabama. But there's a girl in Alabama that flies red tails pretty much exclusively at squirrels, because in Alabama that's all they have in her area anyway. And she has a lot of squirrel hawking videos for like 4 or 5 years worth. Just like goshawks on rabbits, every type of falconry you're interested in viewing, you can find it on YouTube. Squirrel hawking is a little bit harder to video because it's up and down, and so usually you have somebody else that has the camera, and the falconer is working with the bird and running around. So those are the better videos. When the person has the camera themselves and are trying to video their own bird, it's a little bit harder, and it's harder to see. It's a little more shaky and whatnot. So you just kind of pick through the videos a little bit. But like, there's one, I think it's actually called The Squawker. That she's got a ton of videos that are pretty good. And then, but like goshawks and Harris hawks, you can find videos. Like even car hawking on kestrels, you can find that. Kestrels are the smallest falcon we have here in this country, and we hunt starlings with them out of the car.
Wow, I bet that's interesting.
It's drive-by falconry.
Oh my god!
But it's a different aspect. It's, people think it's unfair, but it's no different than you having your dog on point with a shotgun in your hand.
Yeah.
Pheasant's there.
It's just there's more than one way to skin a cat, I guess.
Yeah. And it's and starlings are an invasive species. You actually can eradicate them with extreme prejudice, and no one cares because they're an invasive species. They shouldn't be here. I think that's why we get a little more lenient on the starlings and the English sparrows, because they're invasive. They're not supposed to be here. They take nesting sites for native species, so we're allowed to, like I said, eradicate them. Like, those are basically the only things we really car hawk. I know some people car hawk crows, but I've done it in the past, but I haven't done it in a long time. I've only done it like twice though.
Man, that's wild.
But
Hey,
but the starlings, it's pretty crazy.
Before we jump out of here, where can people like connect with you or connect with is there like a local group? Like if somebody wanted to get more
Like
information?
for example, in pretty much every state, no matter what state you're in, has a falconry club of some sort.
Okay.
And most of them have websites. Most of them now have Facebook pages. And then like I'm on Facebook. I have my own personal page. Just got my name on it, nothing fancy. Picture of me and my goshawk, as my front picture, so it's pretty easy to find. But there's also the national organization. It's called NAFA, North American Falconer Association. They have a big meet every year. It's a week long. This year it's the week of Thanksgiving. I'm going to go to that. It's in Nebraska this year. And I'm going to hunt rabbits and squirrels. And I still have never caught a jackrabbit, so I'm hoping to do that this year because there are some jacks in Nebraska. Last year it was in Texas, and that place is just loaded with jackrabbits, and I unfortunately wasn't able to go because I would love to do that. Because I still, like I said, I've still never caught a jackrabbit. And it's on my bucket list. But NAFA is the national organization. They spearhead everything whenever they can. They work with the state clubs. They basically keep falconry alive in this country. We've proven that it's non-impact. More rabbits are killed by cars hitting the road than probably falconers kill in a season. So, we're zero impact. We like peregrine falcons. Everybody's heard of a peregrine falcon. Everybody's seen one in the wild or a zoo or education setting. If it wasn't for falconers, peregrine falcons wouldn't exist anymore. It wasn't U.S. fish that brought them back from this brink of extinction. It was falconers. Falconers donated their birds to other falconer breeding projects. And the falconer breeding projects released their birds with donations. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't a free endeavor, but it took a lot of time and money to learn to breed peregrines to release them. And the guys that started that, most of them have passed away by now. Their knowledge has been passed down to their apprentices and friends, and those are your big breeders in the country now. Guys breed falcons for a living. Some there's a few guys that do it. Kudos to those guys that do it. I've bred some birds, but it's a lot of work. I wouldn't want to do it on a full scale, try to make it a job, but it does exist. And there are falconry magazines. There are falconry suppliers. Like originally there was one falconry supplier, now there's a bunch. There's, back in the day you had to make everything yourself for this sport. Now you can buy everything for this sport, but it's most of the stuff. It makes more sense to make it yourself. Like obviously my gloves, I'm not gonna try to make a glove. It's a little for me, but like lures and my jesses and stuff like that, I'll make for the most part. Unless I want braided gear, because I can't braid the knots that they braid for this special gear, so I'll buy that. Obviously bells I have to buy because I can't make bells. But they're special bells, and it's not like you can go to the hardware store and pick up a bell for your bird. It's it might be this big around, but it weighs almost nothing, and it's going to last a lot longer than your Christmas bell that's on your tree.
Thank God for Amazon and the internet.
Yeah, well, there is stuff on Amazon now, but the actual I always tell everybody go to the main falconry suppliers because then it's legit gear. It's not going to break on the first time you try to use it. Dead in a tree somewhere because it's hanging upside down.
Yeah.
Because your bird safety is your number one goal. But with it being a wild animal, you're almost risking its life every time you take it out hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, like I said, highest to highs, lowest to lows. And sometimes they all come together in the same day.
That's what makes it exciting, though, right? It keeps you on your toes.
To an extent, yeah. The lows are terrible and they suck, and Luckily, I've only had it happen a couple times in my life. My wife has had it once already. She knows how it feels, and because she's only been a falconer about 8 years now, and her best bird to date went out in some tragic freak situation that will never be duplicated ever again, probably. Just like my goshawk hitting flying over every fence he's ever seen until the day he decided not to fly over the fence. I had a Harris hawk get drowned with a duck, get sucked into an old stone dam, and their bodies never washed out the other side. So technically, does that count as a kill because the duck never come out either? I don't know. I never counted it. But,
that's wild.
It's just it's a weird thing that happens. People have had birds drown. People have had birds. My goshawk mentor that lives in New York, he had a mink get in and kill 3 birds in like one night.
Ooh, inside of his inside the shelter.
Yeah, and these were breeding birds, so it's not like these are breeders, so that was a big hit. And then just weird things happen sometimes, like cats. People are like, "Oh, does your bird go after cats?" Well, unfortunately, I've caught one cat in my life. I was at my very first napping meet I ever went to in Kansas, and I had a female Harris hawk that caught a cat. It was a scary situation because people don't realize one scratch from a tooth or a claw, and your bird could be dead in 24 hours. Like
cat
that's how
scratch
nasty
fever.
the bacteria is that are on cats.
Yeah.
Especially feral cats. Feral cats have more bacteria than even domestic cats, and a domestic cat can kill your bird that fast without ever actually hurting the bird, just scratch. So that was a pretty stressful situation for a couple days after catching the cat, which wasn't intended. We were looking for rabbits, and she just happened to pitch down and catch a cat.
Wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, it's not wasn't something we were trying to do. Didn't know the cat was there. Nothing like that. It was because that's something I hope never happens ever again because it is a scary situation, and it's not good. Like I said, your bird can be dead in 24 hours from even tangling with a cat. Even if the cat gets away unharmed, it's a bad situation. Which unfortunately I had to put the cat down because my bird messed it up pretty bad. It's not like I wanted to put a cat down, but I had to. I had no choice. I didn't want don't want it to suffer.
Yeah, always did the humane thing.
Yeah, and like when you can tell when your birds mess something up. Their talons are 2-3 inches long. And they got it through the cat's neck. It's not a pretty situation.
Yeah.
You don't want the bird. Like I said, it's bad things happen sometimes that you can't prevent in this sport, and you just kind of deal with it as you must. And some people freak out about it, some people don't. Sometimes you gotta keep your wits in the think on your toes, think on your feet. Especially raising a nice goshawk, you got to be on your toes all the time. But it's I call it my addiction. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. The only time I travel is with my birds.
There's a lot worse things to be addicted to. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely, and that's why I label it that way because people are like, "What do you mean it's your addiction?" Well, it's my drug. It's my drug of choice. I love it. I dream about it. Like right now is the off season, so it's not as big of a deal. I try to relax.
It's always in the back of your mind.
It's all there. I have a bookshelf loaded with reading material, and even if I've read it 100 times, I'll read it 100 times more before I die because it's my knowledge is always my goal is to never stop learning with this because every bird is different. Every day is different, even with the individual bird. That bird can teach you something if you're willing to learn from it. At some point, you will stop learning from an individual bird, which is where, hey, let's get a new bird. Let's fly this one for a little while, release it, get a new one, or give it to somebody else if it's a captive bred bird, get another one, and learn all over again. And then some birds you'll never stop. Like that's why I like goshawks so much. The accipiers, like Cooper's hawks and sharpshins, and they're the three hardest to really fly in this country. Other than obviously eagles, but I have no desire for those. But goshawk will make you think, and you better react quickly, or well, my goshawk actually hit me in the eyebrow, and I was bleeding all over the place. And that was a scratch, because you obviously your head and your face bleed pretty bad when it gets even a nick. But I was half asleep when I went out to weigh in. Oh. Like I got out of bed, put my PJs on, and I went out to weigh in. I was all like this, and I paid the price. He wasn't in a good mood, and I didn't notice. I did after he woke me up. and I mean, I was bleeding. My face was covered in blood. I still weighed him though. I didn't give up. I weighed him, put him back, and then I went hunting about 2 hours later after I cleaned myself up. But no, like they're an animal. They have their moods and temper tantrums, and just like anything else, just like dogs and cats do, and they
all have their own personality.
Yeah, they have it, like my red tail. As far as the normal day-to-day stuff, she could care less dealing with me. She don't care. Like, most of my red tails of the past, I could put them on a perch in my living room, they'd fluff up, stand 1 foot, and you'd think it was a statue sitting there. This bird, no. But when I take her out hunting, as soon as I unhood her, it's game on. There's no screw around. There's no, like, some birds, they take like 15 minutes to wake up.
Yeah.
Like you get them out, they got to start moving around a little bit and get their blood flowing. Not her. She is game on. My goshawk was the same way. Pull him out of giant hood. You better be flushing game for him, or he's gonna get mad. You better put game in front of him. But that's what we did. I made sure I went to spots that had game, and I put game in front of him. It didn't matter if we caught something or not.
Yeah.
It's just he needed to get it out. And by chasing hard. So I put him in harder situations. Like obviously in the beginning of the season in September, we're looking for guineas. Hey, there's a rabbit running across mowed lawn. We're looking for that. Come end of October, November, we're walking through grass that's up to my chest, and he's waiting for the grass to move. And he's keen on that. And he's chasing everything that moves. And I let him. I didn't hold him back. Ironically, I only held him back a couple of times ever. And one time, something just didn't feel right. I flushed, so I didn't know what it was. I flushed something. I saw the grass move, but I held him back. It wound up being a cat.
Oh.
I got really lucky because a cat would have him up because he's not, my female hairshawk that caught the cat in Kansas was a way bigger bird than he was.
Yeah.
And so him grabbing hold of the cat would have been and it was a big, big cat. The cat in Kansas was a young, 6-month-old cat. So I got lucky in that situation. This cat was a big old bruiser top cat that would probably
looking for a fight.
More, Yeah, that would have been. But it was just natural instinct for me to hold him back at that moment. I don't know why. I couldn't even tell you why. I just did. And it was a cat. When 99% of the time in that exact same situation, I'd have cut him loose and he'd have chased whatever flushed. And I got lucky. Like I even had him.
That sixth sense.
It was dumb luck. Like I actually, like I always, like all birds I say have like almost like 9 lives, like a cat.
Mm-hmm.
Because just weird things happen and you get lucky and the bird's okay. Nothing bad happened, but it could have if your timing was off or something. For example, I actually flushed a rabbit and it ran across the road. Normally, this is a heavily traveled road, and I caught him loose. I wasn't even thinking. It just was in the spur of the moment, instinctive. I wanted to catch this rabbit. I wasn't paying attention to where I was. And that rabbit ran across the road, and I caught him loose, and I went, oh, shit. And I instantly looked both directions, not a car on this entire road, when normally there's always cars on that road. And I went, I just cost that bird a life. I think I think we just checked one off. He's only got 8 left, I think, and it was a scary situation. I'm like, and I got home. I still this was like 2 hours later. I'm like, I still can't believe I did that. Like, but I made sure I never did it again. So I pay attention to where I was in that situation in the future, just because you put so much effort in that bird, you don't want something bad to happen, and then you're in a situation where you don't think anything can, and something does. So
it's
one of those terrible things that happens, and
part of
everybody always says highs, lows, lows in the sport.
Well, Chris, I appreciate you you taking the time to come on here. I'm sure my listeners will love this show. Like I said, I saw your truck the other day, and I was like, my God, I want to hear more about that. And I kind of kept myself from looking it up on YouTube or anything because I wanted to get the 411 from you. I didn't want it to be skewed or anything like that. So maybe now I can go and look it up. But like I said, I appreciate you coming on and sharing the knowledge.
YouTube now, because there are obviously there's a very few videos that I would say don't watch, but the chances of somebody just randomly stumbling on them are lower. That especially if I tell you, hey, type in squirrel hawking, you're gonna find some good squirrel hawking. You type in goshawk falconry, you're gonna find some good goshawk falconry videos. Like the videos that I know that aren't that great, you literally have to be looking for a specific thing, and no one's gonna type in that specific search. I don't mention it because I don't want.
Don't mention it because they'll do it. That's the first thing they'll do.
But
all right, man.
Like squirrel hawking, squirrel falconer.
Squirrel Hawkins, Squirrel Falconer. All right, man. Guys, if you guys have any questions, you want to run past Chris, either get a hold of me or get a hold of one of the groups. If you're in Indiana locally, a lot of my listeners are kind of all over the United States. So again, I appreciate it. I hope everybody learns a lot. I really enjoyed chatting about it.
Glad, happy to be here. Actually, it's my first podcast. So
yeah, you did great, man.
If you want to do another one in the future, we can figure something out. And
yeah,
if you want.
Yeah, you guys write me, email me, let me know if you want to hear a second episode, and maybe we'll get into some more nitty gritty details. But I appreciate it again, Chris, and we'll get out of here.
All
right. Thanks, man.
Yep. Have a good one.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning into another episode of the Hunt the Wild podcast. If you enjoyed the show and it's brought you some sort of value, I'd love if you could give me a rating and a review. Just a few seconds of your time can help me better understand the type of content you all enjoy, and it would mean the world to me to hear from all of you.